New numbers out this morning reveal a snapshot of how many people in Austin are spending the night either in cars, tents, parks, or in shelters.
Volunteers for the point in time count went out on a cold night in January and they hand counted the number of people experiencing homelessness. Today, we are learning that's more than 3,000 people. A little more than half of them were staying in those shelters or transitional housing. The rest, about 1,500 people, were spending the night outside. But these numbers are up from the last point in time count 2 years ago. So joining us now for more insight about why we've seen this increase and for more on how this data will actually be used is Joseph Montano, the Director of Research and Evaluation at the Ending Community Homelessness Coalition, better known as ECHO. So Joseph, thank you so much for being here today. Now that we have this year's full report, talk to us about what stood out to you and particularly anything that might not be immediately apparent for folks who might be digging through this report for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first things that a lot of people are going to notice when looking at the data is that there was just a significant increase in the total number of persons experiencing homelessness on the night of the pit count. But one thing that I think is really important to note is one, that we had our cold weather shelter open from the city, which was a great benefit to all of those people that were experiencing homelessness on the night of the pit count. And that increased our overall shelter count for the whole night. So it plays a really big role in our total increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness. And I think it explains a little bit of the shock that we might see when we look at the difference between 2023 and 2025. As the city makes efforts to open up more shelter opportunities for people, we can really see the benefit of that here and being able to count them more easily through our pit count. So overall, the trends of how many people have increased in our unsheltered count is not significantly higher than what we've seen in past pit counts. And I think a large reason of why we see that large increase comes from the dramatic increase in shelter units that we have available, which is where we want our system to be going.
Yeah, thank you so much for that context. It is very fascinating to read a little bit more into those numbers, but we also want to ask you about more than 500 unsheltered people answered some survey questions for you all. What insights did you all get from that survey and why are those important?
Yeah, absolutely. So the survey really helps us understand the demographic breakdowns of those people that are unsheltered. It helps us get an idea of what maybe some of the racial disparities are between the populations, what the breakdowns are with age, if they have any special indicators like veteran status, if they're chronically homeless. We can't really do that if we're just observing people that are on the street or unsheltered on the night of the pit count. So getting those surveys is really important for us to be able to truly understand the population that is unsheltered, which is the whole point of the pit count. So through those conversations, we get to understand things like that there was an increase of 169 more veterans between 2023 and 2025. Overall, we had an increase of 441 more people that are chronically homeless from 2023. And those pieces of information are really what come from the survey information, in addition to questions that we asked around the access to coordinated assessments, as well as whether or not someone was utilizing cold weather shelter, any reasons why they might not have utilized cold weather shelter as well.
I do want to ask our team, we have some of those numbers from that survey pulled up. And so if we could show some of that on the screen while we ask this next question here. We noticed that, 44% of those people who answered those survey questions said that this was their first time experiencing homelessness. Here on the screen, there's a few other of those statistics. 13% of respondents said they were veterans. 68% became homeless here in our area. 40% reported having a physical disability. But back to that 44%, talk to us, Joseph, about what can you tell us about 44% of people saying it was really their first time experiencing homelessness? What is ECHO really doing to target those folks who are really needing some of these services, maybe for the first time in their lives?
Absolutely. I think it really speaks to the major issue around people entering homelessness and the inflow to the homeless response system, which is that there is not enough affordable housing for folks to be able to maintain stable housing and to be able to afford it. Oftentimes, there's a bit of a myth that goes around with people believing that there's huge influxes of people coming to urban areas if they are homeless, and that is what skews our data. But this question, really, we ask that to really understand if that is the case or not. And we can see that that really isn't the case, that a lot of the people who are unsheltered on the night of the pig count became homeless for the first time within this year. We have funding to run a database called the Homeless Management Information System. And there we keep track of people's homeless history journey over time. And so we have access to a lot of data, but also being able to ask people directly whether or not this was their first time is a really important piece of information for us to understand what other pipelines of supportive services we need to offer within the city. ECHO is pursuing homelessness prevention work directly to support this, as well as you might have seen there was a solicitation from the Homeless Strategy Office for homelessness prevention work. As we really begin to understand like the true characteristics of the population and understand that people are becoming homeless due to the environment of our rental market and the cost of housing within Austin and Travis County, we see the need for us to be able to try to catch people before they enter the homeless response system. And targeting this 44% is really going to be important with that work, doing homelessness prevention work, trying to understand how we can provide minimal housing assistance, how we can provide supportive service and case management to be able to support people before they enter the system for too long and encounter more housing barriers and the difficulty of access to housing that comes with being unsheltered. And we really see that, it indicates the need. And there is a lot of great work coming up from both the city's HSO office as well as ECHO to really target these people that are inflowing into the system.
And Joseph, we only have a few more moments left, but can you just remind us about how this data will be used for you all?
Yeah, absolutely. So this really helps us hone in what sorts of services or things that we need to modify about our system. One thing that's highlighted on the brief that I think is really important is our jail data, and understanding that on the night of the pig count, 33% of the persons who were in jail were either listed as homeless or didn't have an address. And that's a really significant number. So when we're talking about different ways that we can support people, different ways that we can engage those who are becoming homeless for the first time or entering the system, this data is important for us to have some sort of wayfinder towards resolving homelessness early enough and to getting people off of the streets. So this data is going to continue to be used. We report it out to HUD, but we also use it to inform our services as we go to understand the population as best as we can.
Joseph with ECHO, thank you so much for the insight behind these numbers. And we want to note that if people want to dig into that report, we do have a link to it on our website right now, kxan.com, to make it really easy. You can dig through more of the insights from ECHO. So Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.